I know Anna already did a great job at introducing me, so I'm not going to go over it again. Just a little bit of background on me. I was born in Bolivia. I grew up in Peru, and my parents are from Chile. And I've been living in Boston for about 10 years now. And fun fact about me, I love to travel, and I already mentioned that. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, you can follow me at Donzadiana. And you can also follow the hashtag #chatbots. And you can also ask questions on that Twitter feed, which is where one of our product specialists at HubSpot is always answering questions on chatbots. So what am I here to do today, really? And what I want to do is really enable successful conversations in an efficient way. But before we do that, I'm going to share a story with you. And it's a story of frustration in the beginning, but then it turns into realization. So what happened is yesterday, as I was preparing for my trip here to Valdosta, I usually have my Amazon Echo Alexa thingy-majiggy. Who knows what Amazon is, Alexa or Siri, or who here has ever used it? Awesome, a lot of us, okay. Who has no clue what? Oh, right, okay, we have a very, very techie crowd, I see. All right, who here is in marketing? Okay, awesome, a lot of us. Sales? Entrepreneur, business, CEO, leader? Who here has a million hats and is doing a lot of everything all the time? You should all have your hands raised. You should all have them raised. All right, so I get a sense for who's in the room, which is great. So Alexa. Alexa has become a really good friend of mine in the most recent couple of months. And usually when I'm doing stuff, like I put the rice in the cooker and I say, Alexa, put the timer for 5 minutes, and she does it, and it's wonderful. And I ask Alexa what the traffic is like to get to work. And so I was like, you know what, let me ask Alexa what the weather is like in Valdosta. So I go, Alexa, what's the weather like in Valdosta? And Alexa, she's very sassy sometimes, right? So she goes, the best place for food in Valdosta is cheddar scratch chicken. And I'm like, what? Alexa, does anybody here know what that is? Or is that a place? Is that an actual, restaurant? All right, so we know how sometimes technology fails us sometimes, that's for sure. So I go and I remember as I was packing for Valdosta, which I found out it was very nice and warm, which is wonderful. I remembered it was my best friend's birthday, and I said I was going to send a cake, just to be nice. So I say, hey, Alexa, where can I buy a cake? And again, Alexa gets really sassy on me this time, and she goes, the cake is not a lie. It is delicious and moist. You can have some when you finish asking me questions. And of course, I'm like, okay, Alexa, I hate you, bye. So then I just grab my bag and I leave, and I head to the airport. And as I go to the airport, I stop by Starbucks because that's usually where I like to go, in the morning. Who here goes to Starbucks or likes Starbucks? Some of us, okay. Well, Boston is huge on Starbucks, so it's everywhere. So I usually order the same thing, ice, caramel, macchiato, and I go to the same Starbucks every day, and they know me, they know my name because I'm there all the time. So this time, I ordered my iced caramel macchiato, and I go to the end of the line, and I hear, first of all, I get a hot caramel macchiato, and second of all, I hear, hot caramel macchiato for Juana. I'm like, who's Juana? It's Diana, not Juana. I'm like, Starbucks, that's the easiest name in the world, and you can't remember it. Not really, but frustration number 2. So as I go to the end of the line, the barista says, have you tried our barista chatbot? And I go, mind blown. All right, so what is this thing? All right, so what you can do is you can actually order whatever you want from the barista bot, and your order is just made before you even get to Starbucks. So I said, well, that's efficient. I wish I knew that before. Anyway, new fact for all of you who want to go to Starbucks. So I head to the airport, and, it's a quick flight, not too bad. Boston to Valdosta. I'm reading up on, what's up in Valdosta. And I find this. How many of us encounter this a lot? different places. And what do we feel when we see this? Obviously, this means no Wi-Fi. So I guess our heart sinks a little bit, and we're like, oh, there's no connection. Oh my God. So I'm like, how am I gonna work on my presentation? I was gonna, prepare, practice, and all of this. I'm like, I can't believe it. We sent a man to the moon, and there's no Wi-Fi. That's crazy. And I still keep getting this sign. And oh well. What happens is I just do this. And I'm sitting on the plane like, okay, well, Delta, you said there was Wi-Fi on the plane, but that's not true. So I give up. But what I realized is that we are actually in the era of convenience. It's a time and a place and an environment in which we are just want it fast, on demand. We just want it now, and we are not patient. So our patience has gone very, very low, and our expectations have gotten very, very high, and we have a little bit of a problem there. So welcome to the era of convenience. Let's chat about chatbots. So today, what are some of the things I'm going to show you today? You can go ahead and take a look at what we'll cover. So a little bit about messaging, a little bit about some of the biggest opportunities for your own company when it comes to messaging. We're going to talk about a case study. We're going to see some examples of how this can be implemented. And then we're also just going to see how we can just start today with some tips that I'll give you and some tricks that might be useful. Are we good? Yes? Can I get a really loud yes? Yes. Okay, that wasn't loud enough. Can I get a really loud yes? Yes. Yes, that's the energy. That's the energy. All right, cool. So the rise of messaging. So to understand the rise of messaging, the first thing we need to do is go back into the 1950s. So what happened in the 1950s? We would do business with people that we knew and people that we trusted, right? So we would go to our milkman and we would ask Jerry, the guy that would fix our car, to do it for us. And, it was very easy to have a conversation because, we didn't have cell phones that were always connected to everything all the time, right? So it was more of a one-to-one kind of marketing. What happened when marketing exploded and then we just had a lot of this? Who remembers this time when you just were like, what is happening to my screen right now? I can't even exit out of anything and I'm completely just losing my mind. So what happened with this is that marketers started to just invade everybody, and we lost something very important. Who can tell me what you think we lost? People skills, yes, that personal touch, that personal connection that we need to have or that we used to have in the 1950s, right? So what happened is we decided to go for a one-to-many shotgun approach and just attack and give everybody the same thing or even personalize it, but not as much to create or keep that personal connection. So what's the problem? Why did we do this? Lack of time, right? Because we would love to just talk to as many people as we want in as little time as possible. And that meant losing a little bit of that personal connection, right? So let's talk a little bit about what research says. So research says that 42% prefer live chat, 23% prefer email, and 16% prefer social. So how many of you have a familiar phone that looks just like that? Yeah? We have, I think I've gotten to 11 million, I'm kidding. I probably have 11,000 emails I haven't opened. And you probably all do too, and you have multiple email accounts, your spam email, your other spam email, your other spam email, and then your real email. So, but what happens with the text messages? How many of us read every text message or try to? Why? Who can tell me why we read every? It's directly to you. What else? You know it's short. Okay. What else? Personal. Yes. All right. We're going to talk about some of those things in a little more detail. So 77% of customers won't make a purchase on a website if there's no live chat. Can you believe that? But you know what the biggest problem is? It's that 9% of companies actually have live chat on their website. So that's a great opportunity, low-hanging fruit, because only 9% of companies are doing what 77% of people want, right? So we can take advantage of that low-hanging fruit. So, but how can this be possible that people are actually really willing to use live chat that much? So let's look at the traditional landing page. Who here is familiar with the landing page? Yes, most of us. Okay, so for those of us who aren't familiar with the landing page, it's usually a website page where there's a form embedded in it that you have to fill out, right? And usually what happens is that there's some sort of content that you're trying to get out of that form, right? So the process goes like this. Landing page, you fill out the form, hopefully you save it into a CRM and you have the person's details, and then you send an email. And then what happens after that? There's an automated sequence, maybe, of emails that go out to nurture that person. And then after that, there's a bunch of more emails. And then after that, maybe you get a meeting, right? So that's the traditional process, which, you know, still golden standard, still works right now, still useful today. But let's talk a little bit about what people are doing now. So 55% of B2B companies right now are taking more than 5 days to respond to a generated lead on a landing page form. So what's the problem with that? You lost the person. You weren't immediate. You didn't get that person right when they were ready. So beyond that, email average open rate is 20%. And there's a 2.5 average landing page conversion. So what are we missing here? Is there a missed opportunity? Most people are spending their time on things like this and on their mobile devices. So although email is not dead and nobody says that we're replacing email, we must treat chats or chatbots as an additive, as an additional complement to what we are already doing to adapt to the consumer, to adapt to the person that is trying to buy from you, buy your services, interact with you. So 62% people actually expect live chat on mobile devices. Isn't that crazy? And 82% of mobile users would use live chat if it was actually available. So this is something that we definitely should consider if we don't already have a live chat in our system. This one shocked me a little bit. It takes 12 hours for the average support rep to answer a ticket via email. How many or how much time do you think it takes on average via a messaging or chat channel? 2 minutes, that's right. 2 minutes is the average support time that will happen via chat. So that's another really cool statistic because 38% of people are actually going to buy from us via a messaging app. How many of you have heard of the company Whole Foods? Awesome. So Whole Foods has a great messaging app where you can not only get recipes and suggestions, you can also buy from them, immediately order to your place, and things like Starbucks. A lot of different companies right now are just allowing you to buy directly from their messaging app. So right now, messaging apps have over 5 billion monthly users, with WhatsApp being the biggest one. Who here has ever used WhatsApp? Yeah, we were talking about WhatsApp today, and we were saying my family lives in Peru, so that's the only way that we actually are, we feel very, very connected because it's just international, it's global. What's going to happen when WhatsApp integrates with much more? When they have an ability to integrate with something like HubSpot, with something like Salesforce, what will happen? I wonder. So that number, what I was showing you right now, 5 billion, is actually 70% or more of the world's population in 1980. That's really crazy. So the way in which we communicate has changed very drastically, even in the way that we use apps. So how many of us remember 2008 when we had a bunch of new apps on our phone? And now, we don't download that many apps. Maybe, once in a while, but then we'll delete it. We probably won't ever use it. So what's happening is that we're seeing that 80% of the apps we use belong to the biggest tech giants. So when you think about your phone, which are the apps you use most of the time? Microsoft? Okay. Messenger? Amazon? Twitter? Instagram? Gmail? Google, right? So we can name a few of the apps that we use. So what is traditional chat on websites. We're used to the chat where, you get the chatbot on your website that says, I have a question, I'm here to help, what are you looking to do today? But that's not enough anymore. We have to branch out of just your website for live chat. We're going to talk about some ideas on where you can actually use live chat that go beyond your actual website. So what's the traditional or biggest pet peeve I see with chatbots is the illusion that you're available. Hi, I have a question. Sorry, we're not online. Leave a message, we'll get back to you. That's so frustrating, not to be able to get a response, an immediate response. And if we don't solve the problem now, do you think that they'll come back later? Probably not. So this experience is similar to this one. I'm going to share a story with you. I was thinking about my health the other day because I went to the dentist and I found out I had a cavity and I was very mad because I like to make sure I brush my teeth very well. But I was just like, okay, maybe I should just do a general physical checkup. And so I said, okay, let me book my checkup, my physical. So I think about booking it, I go to my phone and I say, okay, I'm gonna call my primary care, and I call them, it's 7 a.m., I'm walking to work, and I call them, but it's too early, they're not open, so I can't talk to them. I get to the voicemail, so I say, okay, well then I'm gonna call later, and so I make myself a reminder, and then on Sunday, I remember that I have to get a physical, and while I'm watching the soccer game, and I try to call, but it's Sunday and they're closed. So, oh my gosh, I can't call now because it's Sunday and they won't pick up. So it's already 2019 and it's gonna be December of 2019 and I'm probably never gonna get a physical. How many of you have experienced something similar where you're like, I need to get a physical and I haven't yet? All right, so we don't want that. We don't wanna give our customers that experience. First thing, be available. We are living in an environment where it's not enough to be 9 to 5, you have to be 24/7. You have to be available. You have to be available not only on one channel, but on various, right? So 9 seconds is the average attention span of a goldfish. Who knows what is a human attention span? I hear 6, I hear 10 over here. 9? 4, oh, that's mean. That'd be a very big problem. So the average human attention span is 8 seconds. Isn't that crazy? So with that average attention span, we clearly need to do something. And because we're using chatbots to build a relationship, when should we not use chatbots? Who can think of an idea of a scenario where you shouldn't use chatbots? To sell, yes, to sell. Why? Yeah, like why would you want to buy something like, I want to buy a house through a chatbot? No, definitely not. All right, so you definitely should use chatbots for conversational content, so frequently asked questions, things that you have to answer all the time. You definitely want to use it to replace lead generation traditional forms, and you also want to use it for e-commerce. So if you have an e-commerce website, you could definitely use it for that kind of thing. But what should you not use it for? Product outages. So if your product is going through mayhem and you have a shutdown, you definitely don't want to use chatbots. What about billing help? We don't want to talk about how much you owe or, that your bill is due and make the person feel uncomfortable. So definitely not billing and definitely not sales. So let's look at this. It takes 22 minutes to call somebody, to ask them to help you with your password sometimes. But it takes 35 seconds to do it via a chatbot. How many of us have tried calling our cell phone provider before? Any cell phone provider. And what was your experience when you were calling your cell phone provider? Probably the worst calling experience you've ever had, right? So I have a friend of mine who was calling their bank. He was trying to get an account switched to another account. He spent 30 minutes on the phone. But what did he do? While he was on the phone, he was so outraged that he decided to literally open up an account in another bank. So what's easier, deal with an inconvenience or go to the competition? That's probably something that we need to be aware of we're thinking of where are the inconveniences in our process? Where are some of the pain points that our customers are experiencing? So be available is the first one. The second one is be authentic. What do we mean by being authentic? Being authentic means building a relationship, right? So let's go back to 1950s and build relationships. How will we do that? I want you to think of your favorite mom and pop shop, your favorite place to go for dinner, lunch, breakfast, your favorite company. Think of it right now. A company you love working with, you love buying from. You have one? All right, I'm going to ask one person to volunteer your name of that place. What's your name? Ella's Top Corral. What is that? Oh, what do they serve? Best food ever. All right, I like it. I dig it. What else? What else? What other place that maybe isn't a restaurant? Other company that you love, that you interact with all the time? Over there in the back? The shoe company, Allbirds Shoe Company? Okay, what's cool about them? They just make everything really easy. Their website's really easy. They ship through your stuff free. They've done returns. They're really easy. Awesome. I'll have to check them out. Allbirds Shoe Company, everybody. That is really cool. So when I think about one of the companies I love, or organizations I love, I think about Disney. Who here has been to Disney or knows Disney or has heard of Disney? All right, so awesome place, really cool place. And I say this because I'm used to talking to in Latin America, and when I say Disney, most people have no idea what I'm talking about. It's really funny. I'm like, do you know what Disney is? They're like, nope, we have no clue. So that's why I ask. But anyway, we're at Disney with a company that I think exemplifies a lot of great interaction. But one cool thing that they have is the Magic Band. Not sure if any of you have used the Magic Band before, but it's really cool. It will store your credit card information, what you ate, what theme park you entered, what thing you got on. And the cool thing about it is that they will build an authentic relationship with you after your experience is over, because they know exactly what you did when you were in the theme park or at Disney. So I'm just going to play a little bit of a video just to kind of give a break, because once this video is over, we're going to go into the meat of some of the things you can apply in your conversational strategy. So let's take a second just to watch this video. Who here, does anybody run here, like to run or enjoy running? Yes? All right, cool. So, you know, if you enjoy running or you like going on runs and you have that kind of an experience, how would you feel? There's somebody there, somebody accountable, somebody checking in with you. And as you notice, there wasn't just a connection through a live chat on a website. There was a lot more than that, right? There were in-app notifications, there were recommendations, there were videos. There was a lot going on there. So, of course, landing pages and lead generation forms are the standard, golden standard, and they still are today. Nobody says they're going away. However, what has changed? And in a nutshell, we have. So, because we have changed, we need to adapt to that change. We are in a world where we want what we want, when we want it, and we don't want to wait. That's exactly what's happening. So, right now, the biggest problem is that businesses haven't adapted to this big change. Businesses haven't adapted to the expectations. And beyond these three key things that I'm going to ask you to remember when you leave today, be adaptable, be available, and be authentic. We talked about 3 different examples of how you can apply this in your own company and your own customer experience. So knowing and adapting to your customer is the new competitive advantage. And when change is a new constant, your customer has to be your compass. So let's talk about marketing one-to-one using chatbots. But wait, what does being adaptable mean? It means offering an omni-channel experience. Who here knows what omni-channel means? Anybody? And?
All the channels, like across social media, website, there's apps.
Exactly, all the channels. So how many of you have maybe talked to a friend through text, but then you talk to them 3 days later through Instagram, and then 3 days later through Facebook Messenger, and then email? And the same conversation is happening, but through different channels. And it's kind of annoying, but it happens. So omni-channel is that, allowing the conversation to follow you wherever you go, regardless of the channel. And that's really important, especially when you have a business that you're leading or a company that you are, you have a big database of customers that are interacting with you through many different channels. Conversations, interactive communication between two or more parties. And chatbots, simple, they're computer programs that simulate one side of a conversation. What's conversational marketing? It's really building one-on-one relationships at scale using chatbots. We're going to talk a little bit about 3 pillars in conversational strategy. And the first pillar is shared knowledge. What do I mean by shared knowledge? I mean information that we collect about someone and the factual information that is created and owned by our own business. So relational information, in this case, relates to a person, their activities, the things that they do, and their experiences. It's a lot of terms. They're going to make sense in a little bit. TTL, time to live. Who here has heard of time to live before? Anybody? Yes? So it's how much time a person will reasonably wait, right, after they've said something or after they've sent a message before they lose patience. How much time do you guys think on average you're willing to wait for a chatbot to respond to you? 3 minutes? Okay. Anybody else? 2? 8 minutes? Who else? 10 seconds. So you know what the cool thing about it that's even better for low-hanging fruit is that it depends, right? There may be some interactions that require a lot more time and some interactions that are much more instant. It will really depend on the type of business that you have, right? So if I'm an e-commerce kind of website, it's probably going to be a lot easier because I have products, I have catalogs, I know exactly where to point you. But if I'm talking to a bank, for example, it's probably going to be a little bit different where maybe I need to interact with you with account numbers and stuff like that, right? So scope. This is probably the most text you're going to see in this whole presentation. But scope is the 3rd pillar and really the most important. And when I talk about scope, I'm talking about standardizing, contextualizing, optimizing, personalizing, and empathizing. So you want to do all of those things when you create your own conversational strategy. You want to standardize all of the questions that you're answering through all of the different channels, and your responses should be the same through all of the different channels. Contextualize. What you say has to be relevant to previous activities or previous questions that people or your customers have asked in the past, or the way they behave when they interact with you. Optimize. So you want to make sure that the experience on that channel, if it's Facebook Messenger, if it's the chat on your website, if it's on your app, is optimized for that experience. Timing it, making sure you're testing it, you're refining it if it's not working. And the last 2 are personalizing. We want to build a chatbot based on real personal information. And the most important piece of scope is the empathy piece. We want to make sure that we are thinking about the person before the fact. Factual information is good and great, but we need to think about the person first, okay? So I'm going to share a story with you about a company that I work with that is a pet store. And they did a really good job at using business information to decrease conversational friction. Who here has a dog or takes a dog to the pet store? Yes, a lot of us. Cool. Okay, so when you take your dog to the pet store, well, this company in particular gathered 3 key things that they needed to know about each pet that came in the door. And it was pet weight, their pet name, and the pet breed. All right? So what they ended up doing with all of this data is they knew that if you had a fluffy Chihuahua that was 200 pounds that doesn't like baths, you would probably remember that information every time this pet came in the door, right? So this company actually increased the number of customers that were walking in the door because they had a personalized experience. They were able to recognize not only when the person walked in, but when the person was on the website booking an appointment for the pet. So we know that you have a Chihuahua that's 200 pounds and his name is Tommy, and we know he doesn't like baths, so we'll just do a dry bath for him. And the experience was really great. I'm going to ask you to give me an answer, and I'm going to show you some comparatives on what numbers are higher. So who thinks messaging is higher than social? Okay, a couple of us who think social is higher than messaging. All right. Sorry, what was the question? In terms of usage. So how many people are using messaging versus social? That was a confusing question. Thanks for clarifying. All right, so the answer is actually 4 billion are using messaging and 3.5 billion are using social. Messenger or Earth? The reality is 1.3 billion are using Messenger. So when we look at these statistics, messaging is one of the few things that people do more than social networking. And why it matters is because it's changing what we expect from companies. And we want to be able to reach a company or a business through messaging. 51% of people want to do business with you 24/7. And they want to message you a lot, but where do you get started? So how do we identify our biggest opportunities, okay? The first thing is we need a repeatable process. We need to do something that you can do a lot of, is frequent, is a common interaction. We also want to be able to provide answers to frequently asked questions in a very organized way. So if you don't already have a knowledge base where you're answering the 10 biggest objections your customers have to why they don't want your product, you definitely need to have that not only on your website, but through a bot. That's one of the things that's going to make a difference between companies that are really leveraging conversational strategy and others that aren't. Predictable. So you want to make sure that your process has a defined start, middle, and end, right? It's something that you want to be able to solve. For example, customer onboarding. When you have a new customer, you want to make sure that the experience is predictable from beginning to end, and you know exactly what the time to value is from the beginning of the time you talk to that customer to the end of their onboarding. It's also impactable. It adds real value to your business. So something like a form can work, but what about changing that form into an actual chatbot? How can you make it a little bit more interactive? Can you offer both options instead of just one? So let's remember this: repeatable, predictable, and impactable. All right, so when you leave today, the biggest CTA is join with your marketing, sales, and services team and think about how are you reaching your customers, all of the channels. What are the channels that you're using to communicate with your customers? Is it email? Is it chat? Is it Facebook Messenger? What is it? And let's try to get some data on which channels are actually being used the most. So we're going to end with a HubSpot case study. All right, so we had an event called 4 Days of Facebook. It's a really cool event. It was live on our channel. It was a webinar. And we had our typical traditional form. Who's seen a HubSpot form before? Yeah, they can be long. There's a lot of information that we ask. And it ended up being a little bit overwhelming to complete. So we decided to go with an actual Facebook campaign with a live messenger where we were asking questions. And what happened is this overwhelming form felt like that. It literally felt like somebody was trying to go through a big wall. And instead, we decided to open up a conversation upon just one click. What happened is we were sending little bits of information at a time. So, for example, we were asking things like, what's the URL of your website? You know, what is the name of your company? How many people work at your company? It'll help send us you more helpful content, right? And pick an option below. So we were making it a lot more delightful for the person to engage in a more natural way to collect information. How it went, 31% cheaper. So our cost to acquire leads was a lot lower. And we had a 40% improved conversion rate. So we had some really good comments from it. You know, now this is a cool ad, check it out. Uses Facebook Messenger bots to register for a webinar. We got some really good comments on, I was already registered, the Facebook Messenger interaction is pretty cool. It confirmed that I was registered, right? So the emotional connection, even with a bot, was really, really helpful. So, you know, we used Giphies. You know, we made sure that people were really emotionally connected to the bot. So knowledge check. Now I'm going to test you all before I leave. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is, what are the 3 pillars of your conversational strategy? What do you want to make sure that you do so that your customers know that you care and that they really matter. There's 3 of them. Can someone mention one over there in the back? Adaptable, yes. What was the next one? Authentic and? Yes, awesome. A+. Oops, never mind, you didn't see that. Okay, what about the next ones? What can we do to make sure that our strategy is great from beginning to end? What is the first thing we need to focus on? Consistent, okay, so it's predictable, yes. What else? Repeatable, yes. What else? Impact, yes. We want to make sure we have impact. So repeatable, predictable, and impactable. And the last one, the hardest one, I want somebody to tell me what the S in scope stands for. Standardize, all right. So you're going to standardize the content. What about the C? Context, yes, you want to contextualize. What about the O? Optimize all of our processes through the chatbot. What about the P? Personalize. And the final, most important? Yes, you guys have A+++, 4.0 GPAs. So this is something we definitely want to make sure we remember. So how to get more messages today? Add a button to your Facebook page, install a customer chat on your website, use CTAs on your website, run a send to messenger campaign. You can use different tools like ManyChat, HubSpot bots. They're free, they're available, so try them. It's a lot easier than you think to build a bot. So, biggest shift in 10 years is conversational marketing. So, that's pretty much it. I know that was long, but thanks for listening. Questions, comments,